hard launch.
It's hard intro.
Hard intro. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. You have found Distill at a 360-degree view of life in sport. Oh, yes, and of course, there you go.
Another hard intro.
Another hard
It wasn't
intro.
hard enough the first time around.
My name is Wendy Rosenthal, and I am joined by the lovely Eira Switzer, as usual. Hello.
Hi there.
This is a very exciting day for us because
It's raining in LA.
it's raining in LA.
It hailed.
It hailed. The weather is unusual, and we get to look out from our new studios at the United Broadcast Network.
It is a lovely view.
It's beautiful. We're overlooking a golf course, and it's pouring rain.
Yep.
And for those of us in Los Angeles, it is mostly welcome because we definitely need it, except for people who might be affected by mudslides. We don't want to.
Right.
We don't want
or
to
those who
that.
those who are challenged, which is, most people, to drive in the rain.
Exactly, which we could do a whole show on, but we won't.
Right.
We are here today as the co-owners of the Distillery, a sports consulting group who works with athletes to repurpose their athletic intelligence into a very meaningful and purposeful life after their careers. And because of that and our deep love for sports, we are sitting here with you today to kind of give our perspective, which is usually around everything but what is happening on the field in the world of sports.
But today we will be talking about what is
happening on the field.
I want so much to rip that sticker off here. You have no idea.
Excuse
I'm
me.
watching you.
I want everybody to see my sticker.
I'm trying very hard not to interrupt, but I'm so distracted by the
I want everybody to see my sticker.
glare off of that.
Now, I was told by more than one person, a very reputable source who wears these type of hats too, that the sticker really is important.
Right.
And as much as you want to rip it off, I'm keeping it on.
I overheard this conversation.
Which just says, I'm hip and you're not.
Right. That's what it says.
I'm in with the hat crowd, and I know. But more importantly than the sticker is what is the logo on the hat, which we are going to get to in a moment. One of the things that we really believe in strongly, first of all, is that sports is a metaphor for life. And that's one of the things we wanted to talk about today. But we also want to kind of take a moment to say we are very, very excited to announce that we're moving our showtime.
We are. Look at this. Thursdays
Yeah.
at 1.
Thursdays at 1. We, with a lot of feedback from our overseas friends who have and do stay up till like 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and those numbers just keep growing, so we are so, so very grateful.
Yes, and so we wanted to actually make this the post-dinner show overseas.
Exactly.
And that's why we are now on Thursdays at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Pacific Coast time. So we hope to see you all every other week on our new day and time.
Yep.
And we want to say hello to our engineer today, who happens to be Kurt. Welcome.
Hello. How are you doing?
Kurt doesn't often work with us, so we're very, very excited, but we adore you. And we're very excited to have you.
It's been a couple of times, right?
It has
but it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've ran your show.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I think I remember what to do.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think you'll handle it.
We have no worries.
Yeah,
we are
that's
very
good.
safe.
We put him on the spot today and said that we are going to make him talk about sports. So
Because it is
we're looking
Freestyle
forward to
Day,
it.
and we have lots to discuss.
Yes.
So we want thoughts and opinions.
Right. We haven't done this in a few weeks, and we have a lot to talk about. And I think the place to start, and also we want to have your comments because we love hearing from all of you.
Yep.
So you can either write us in the comment box on our Facebook page, or you can call us at 323-524-2599 if you want to jump into the conversation. For those of you who are not football fans, I'm sorry, this show might not be your favorite show.
It will be a bit football-centric.
It's going to be a bit football-centric.
But it'll go beyond that.
It will. And
There's a bigger picture.
There always is. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring up the fact that we are, we look at sports as a metaphor for life, because actually what happened in the Los Angeles Rams, New Orleans Saints, NFC Championship game, which took place almost 2 weeks ago, is big news for a lot of reasons, not just because the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. Can I just say the Rams are going to the Super Bowl? I can't believe it.
We knew it.
I want everybody to know that the last time that the LA Rams went to the Super Bowl, I was there. It was like 1979, and they played at the Rose Bowl against Pittsburgh Steelers, and they lost. And I was with my dad in the very last row of the Rose Bowl. And for any of you who've been to the Rose Bowl, know that last row is really far away.
Yeah.
But
it was worth it. You were in.
I was in one of the most memorable evenings of my life.
Yeah.
We are very, very excited about it.
We've got high hopes this year.
but it doesn't come without controversy.
Yeah.
And that controversy is something that for us represents a lot of very interesting angles, a lot of very interesting things to talk about,
Right.
Not just with football, but in all sports where, refereeing is now being called to a
different standard.
Different standard.
Sure. And with technology advancing as fast and as efficiently as it has, we're expecting more and more, ultimately, perfection.
Exactly. So let's set the stage. For those of you who don't care or didn't watch, the game was played a couple of weeks ago, and with about a minute 45 to go, the New Orleans Saints were up by 3 points.
Right.
Drew Brees made a pass very near to the Rams' end zone, so it could have been a score, either field goal or touchdown at that point, which would have made it very hard for the Rams to come back.
Yep.
Or it could have been nothing, and the Rams still would have lost.
Yep.
And the defensive player went to make the tackle, interfered, most likely, okay, but even if the interference call hadn't happened, there was helmet-to-helmet contact, which nowadays, if there is helmet-to-helmet contact, trying to protect all of the players, which is the right thing to do, it's usually a very big penalty, sometimes an ejection of the player,
right,
if they are seen to maybe do it, intentionally, and none of those calls were made at all.
Right.
What ultimately happened was the Rams got the ball back. They proceeded to make a field goal tying the game, and the game went into overtime, which is another interesting angle that I want to kind of leave. In overtime, the Rams ultimately won on a kicked field goal, and they are going to the Super Bowl. Did I say the Rams are going to the Super Bowl?
Say it again.
Say it again. The Rams are going to the Super Bowl. And obviously leaving the New Orleans Saints very disappointed, their fan base extraordinarily disappointed.
Sure.
To the point where they now have, two fans have filed 2 separate lawsuits
Yep.
in order to compel the NFL to replay the game.
Yeah.
And in the last day or so, much has come out about the fact that that isn't going to happen. Basically, what they're saying is if anything does happen from a legal standpoint, it might be that the fans are able to get their ticket price back,
right,
which is not exactly what I think the fans really care about anyway.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of apologies. There's admission by the NFL that the calls were not appropriate,
right,
that they were missed, and but they're saying, look, in order to stop this and play the game over, which I guess legally they could do, it would be a loss of about $100 million to not just the NFL, but to the brands that are, have paid a lot of money for ad space, to the fans who have spent a lot of money to make their way to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem practical. So that's the stage. The first question, and I put this on my Facebook page, I wanted to get some responses. A lot of talk has been around, do the Rams deserve to be there? So
right,
maybe we start there and kind of carry on, because there's just so many stories and thoughts and interesting angles that come out of this particular incident.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, aside from the fact that we're obviously Rams fans and we very much so believe that they deserve to be there.
Yes.
I think for me,
but we're not going to be in this discussion.
Right.
We'll try
in this
remain
conversation,
very
really,
not biased.
it's not about, and it really is, for me, ultimately, it isn't even about the missed calls or the pull. It's, yes, of course, mistakes were made. We acknowledge that. For me, I think the most interesting thing has been this conversation around this expectation we have for perfection to be an attainable goal in these games. And for me, we talk about this all the time. Sports really is such a metaphor for life. So I'm fascinated by this idea that we believe everything really needs to be fair. Mm-hmm. When at the end of the day, we all have different perspectives. We all have different expectations. What really constitutes fairness?
Right.
And I think that in any sport where you have refs involved, the refereeing and his or her human error, because we are all fallible, is inherently part of the game. And you expect that to, of course, affect the game. And sometimes it works in your favor and sometimes it doesn't.
Well,
but that is part of the game.
Well, I think that's a really important part. We talk about in every arena there are more than just the players.
Sure.
There are the coaches and how they impact the game.
Yeah.
There are the referees and how they impact the game. There are the fans. Look what happened, in St. Louis, in New Orleans at the beginning of that game.
Right.
The Rams were completely thrown off by the noise that the fans were making.
Sure.
So if we were to turn around to the fans and say,
Silence.
you have to be fair and
Right.
equal, you can't
Let them focus. They're working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, please, you're disrupting them.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Right.
If that was a new rule that
Right.
went into effect so
Yeah.
that both sides were equally, treated fairly?
Sure.
The fact of the matter is, why do people want home field advantage?
Yeah.
Because they want their fans to
Yeah.
disrupt the game.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so for me, I agree with you completely. And we are looking for also dissenting views, but I agree with you.
And I don't say it lightly.
No.
Because I grew up playing sports. I'm very much in the mindset of understanding, like, you are working so hard. And of course you want things to work out, as we said, fair. But what is fair?
Right.
When it comes to sports, there's so many other players involved, including the ref, so many other factors involved that you just can't control. At the end of the day, I think, and look, and I'm not making light of the fact that for these players, these are pros. This is their profession. This
Right.
is their livelihood. I don't take that lightly. But it isn't as simple as, you're a banker and you accidentally deposit funds into the wrong bank account. Let me reverse that mistake.
Right.
That just isn't what we're talking about. It isn't that simple. And I do know technology is affecting the nature of the game, and I do know that we're going to see huge changes. But for now, when we do have humans on the field doing their job, their fallibility has to be an inherent part of the game that is accepted for what it is, which is sometimes great and sometimes not so great. And it will work out in your favor, and it might not work out in your favor, but that's going to be, at the end of the day, part of the game.
So as an athlete, I'm not asking you to speak for all athletes, and it'd be very interesting to bring this up, in future conversations with different guests.
Sure.
But, as an athlete, you accept that part of the game, don't you? Like,
Right.
going into it.
And I was never a pro athlete. And of course, times have changed so much that, again, technology is so different today that, who knows how I would feel if I were on the field and playing in this, in this climate. But I can only rely on my own experience. And I can talk about, all the lessons I want to teach my own kids, because I do have small kids who play sports now, and they do oftentimes walk off the field very upset, very emotional, because, a call didn't
Go their way.
work out in their favor. And I've seen my daughter walk off the field in tears. And at the end of the day, I tell her, like, remember, sports is a metaphor for life. Even when you work hard, even when you think you've done everything that you can do, and even when you think you've done everything correctly, things might not go your way.
No matter
And
what you're doing.
disappointment is okay.
Right.
Disappointment has to be part of growing up. It has to be, being able to deal with that has to be part of life. So, I was thinking about when we had Jane on our show a couple of months ago, and we were talking about wearables. And I was thinking about,
So Jane, just to put in context, Jane Gideon, who owns a company that's called
CEO, Well Played Sports, and she was on talking about a variety of topics, but we did talk specifically about wearables and how that technology is changing so fast. And I was thinking about the conversation on that shirt she was saying,
Right.
and so now you'll just be able to have, really at the end of the day, we're going to get to a point, I think, where, or is this what people want, where we get to a point where we don't have refs, because there's so much technology out there that we don't need to have people on the field calling these.
So I think that's a great.
Is that what we want?
I want to ask everybody who's listening.
Is that what we want?
Do you want, exactly going back to your
know?
conversation about being perfect, do you want to watch a game where there are no mistakes, where that element is completely taken out of it? And I got to tell you,
and I say this as a soccer fan, a huge soccer fan.
Yeah.
So we watched the World Cup this year,
Yeah.
and we had VAR, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So it completely affects the rhythm of the game. It changes things completely. And, and yes, we look back on things like, maybe if we had technology differently, then we wouldn't have these amazing stories that all of us hang on to and talk about all the time, like the hand of God goal. You know what I mean? But those are things that we look back and realize that was just part of the game.
This is how I feel as a fan. I don't want it all to be exact.
Yeah.
I really don't want it all to be exact. And that leads to a really interesting point in how the controversy surrounding this is, first of all, the mistakes were made by the refs.
Sure.
Fine, they missed the call.
Sure.
But then there's the whole kind of follow on from that is, why didn't they review it?
Yeah.
And now everybody wants to have a solution for reviewing the plays and
Right.
what that should be. And maybe that would have fixed anything. And that would have been, it would have made everything different. So I want to ask you, so in this particular case, the NFL has ruled that pass interference calls are not reviewable.
Reviewable, sure.
Because they say they want to have the referees on the field
Yeah.
making those calls.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it keeps the game interesting. It doesn't stop the flow because then every single time you would have a call against,
Right.
pass everything, it would stop the game all the time.
Yeah.
And
And the game already gets stopped
constantly as
constantly.
it is.
So,
So in my view, I actually believe that it's a good thing to have some of the plays not be reviewable.
Right.
Others are calling for the fact that every play should be reviewable, and then
Right.
you give the coaches the opportunity to have 2 or 3,
Yeah.
red flags during a game, so
Yeah.
that they can then
Yeah.
make their decision on when it
Right.
is. What do you feel about that? Like, I feel like it's an interesting argument because on the one hand, look, these are big games, lots of money.
Sure.
Last 2 minutes, maybe in the last 2 minutes, people should be reviewing every penalty just to make sure.
Yeah.
On the other hand, look, we've been on the receiving end of bad calls. Like, on
Absolutely.
the other hand, I'm kind of like, do I really want even that?
yeah.
Like, even if I'm trying to put myself in the position if it had been the Rams. Because, by the way, there was another call that the referees missed that
Right.
would have been in the favor of the Rams.
Right.
A face mask
Yeah.
to Jared Goff. So,
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, should we be
Where-
refining the rules
Where
just
do
off
you
of one
draw,
incident?
So where do you draw the line?
That's what I'm asking. I don't know. I think it ends
and
up
that's
being...
that's going to be because at the end of the day, it's and look, you can't stay stuck in the past. Like this is, the way the game's always been. Whereas we're seeing with helmets, and the rules around concussions. I mean, it's all shifting, and those are positives. But there will never be perfection.
Right.
So what are we really
What are we striving for?
striving for?
Kurt?
Even with the most amazing technology,
No,
technology
technic-
fails.
Exactly. There's no question.
Well-
Do you have a thought about this?
I think if you're going to add that element to the game, that the coaches are going to try and use that strategically to their advantage.
Sure.
Just like
And it will be kept. You'll have,
Exactly.
like you said, you're going to have a certain number of objections, and that's going to be it.
Exactly. So like what's to stop them from say the offensive team is just blowing the defensive team away, and there's a call that's kind of remotely close but not really. I'm going to call that. I'm going to stop them from stopping that flow of the
Right.
offensive team,
Whoa.
and I
Right.
can use it defensively then.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So what?
So
It's like having 3 timeouts.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like you could use it in that particular sense. Is that good or bad? That's up to you to decide. But
Right. And is that going to be the solution? Is that going to make everyone happy across the board?
yeah.
Well, nothing's going to make everybody happy across the board, but let me ask it to you this way: do you feel like that's a solution that could make these kind of mistakes go away? And if they go away, is that taking something away from the game?
See, you brought up the point of the flow of the game and like it's stopping all the time. I'm sure advertisers would love that because then they can throw in a couple of other commercials or so.
Right.
Anything to do that. But when I want to watch a game, I just want to watch a game, and I don't want to
Yeah.
see it stopped everything. I mean, there is always human error. You have human refs. That's just what's going
We're
to happen.
human.
Right.
Yeah, that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
So why? I think right now is everyone's just too emotional over what's going on. Their team didn't go to the Super Bowl. I'm upset. I want retribution. I want something fixed now.
Yeah.
Is this situation solution going to be the benefit of the game? I don't know. I think it's just all emotional. I'm upset.
But as a fan, okay, I'm not saying you're a fan. I know you know LA teams. I'm not saying you're a fan of either one. But
Yeah.
as somebody who watches sports, do you like that element of human error in your sport because it makes it more interesting, or is it like you would rather see it more regulated, more perfected?
I nothing's going to ever reach perfection. I would rather have that human element, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, if you like you were saying with everyone being quiet, then we're just watching golf at that point. And
Yeah.
like,
No offense to golf.
Excuse me. Golf can be very controversial, by the way.
Yeah, I suppose, but that's just not my cup of tea, all right?
Right.
I want to see the fans up there. I want to see that excitement. I want to see that happen.
Sure.
Otherwise, I would watch golf,
Yeah.
which I do not, in case you were wondering.
Right.
It's a very intense sport watching
Yeah.
golf, by the way. I think
I'll
that
take
we
your
need
word
to.
for it.
Okay.
I've seen her get riled up over golf.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So we have a comment on our Facebook page that says the games are too long now. A 1 hour game with commercials alone already takes 3 hours. So
Right.
I'm understanding from that adding even like every penalty is reviewable would
Sure.
be even more. And interesting now because what they're doing with touchdowns is every touchdown, no matter what, is being reviewed.
Right.
And to me, that's adding more time to the game because every touchdown is being reviewed, no matter what.
Everything is,
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, I think, because it's, I had amazing coaches growing up in a variety of sports, and I was always raised and trained to understand that you don't win or lose a game on one play.
Well, that's the next point. I want to talk about that. Go for it.
No, that is it. You do everything you can, but never set yourself up to believe that you've won or lost a game on one play. It wasn't that one call that did it for you. So please don't spend all your energy and your time getting overly upset over that one call. We had a whole lot going on to lead us up to this. I think about some of the conversations I've had with boxers, with boxing coaches. I think about Freddie Roach and that huge fight over the summer where it was like he's talked about this oftentimes. You train and train and train, knowing that when you're going to go into someone else's house, you're going to make sure you fight and leave no doubt that you won that fight.
Right.
And even so, at the end of the day, there are judges who are going to make a call.
Right.
And it might not work out
Right.
in your favor, despite the fact that everyone who watched that fight said you won it. You won
Exactly.
it by a mile. That's just the way it works out.
And that's the interesting part for me, because it's going to be a progression of a conversation that's going to end up with the fans ultimately. But
Yeah.
So one of the big comments is that because it was a minute 45 and because of the fact that they could have run the play clock down by 80 seconds, and
Sure.
because the Rams only had one timeout at that point,
Yeah.
that it was a shoo-in for them
Yeah.
then to win the game. And what I think that point is so important that people are not recognizing. It's not like, if the Saints were 10 points or even 12 points or 14 points or 20 points ahead, it would have been a non-issue.
Yeah.
It would have been a non-issue.
Yeah.
So why isn't anybody saying, hey, what happened to the rest of the game? Why didn't your defense play better?
Yeah.
Why didn't your offense play better?
Yeah.
Why wasn't your
how
coaching
did you let
better?
it get to the point
Where it was going to be one
Right.
call. And I see that all the time across all sports.
Sure.
And I don't understand that mentality.
Yeah.
Even as a fan, I don't understand how you can look at a whole game and say that it's going to turn on one call.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then you're not actually playing as well as you should be.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't get the entire perspective of the game then, right?
And nobody takes, and then it's about like responsibility. Like
Yeah.
take responsibility for the fact instead of, okay, you can clearly blame the referees, but at
Right.
that point you should be saying to yourselves,
Yeah.
hey guys,
Yeah.
look, we put ourselves in that position.
Yeah.
That to me is
And you
really
do consider
interesting-
again the nature of each sport, because sports are so different, right? They vary sport to sport. It's again, we're talking football, so there are tons of plays and tons of choices and tons of runs and
Right.
tons of passes, that get you to the end of the game. It's not like we're talking the 100-meter dash where it's like there's one shot and you've
And
got
10
under
seconds.
10 seconds.
Right.
Right. So yes, I think as a runner, you want that technology on that starting block because you want to know false start or not.
Right.
Right. But 100-meter race under 10 seconds.
Right.
Right. This is football. So much had to happen to get to that place. Why are we focusing on this one call?
Well, and I think again, if you
and
go
it is
back
a huge
to
call. And yes, of course, bad call, amazing. We affirm you in all of that. Okay.
all of New Orleans, we
Yeah,
affirm
we
you. Are
affirm
you
you.
feel better now that the ladies of Distill
We
It,
provided validation.
we have provided validation, the call sucked.
Right.
We're Ram fans.
get that.
And the call sucked.
Yes.
The Wikipedia page for pass interference now has a picture of that call. That tells you how upset people are.
We're going to be talking about this forever.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting bit. Again, if we go back to sports being a metaphor for life, let's look at how often we don't take responsibility
Yeah.
for things that we do. Like, again, you're in a job and, God forbid you get fired, and
Yeah.
we all blame the boss because
Right.
it's the boss's fault. He doesn't see
Exactly.
what I do. Or, with your kids, if
Yeah.
your kid's acting out and
Yeah.
you don't want to take responsibility, it must be something's wrong with the kid, right?
But it is, it's interesting when you said that word responsibility, and I'm thinking about, and this is no disrespect to, anyone here, but how many conversations have we not had with clients of ours who struggle around that
Yeah.
idea of responsibility?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just on the field or on the court, but now we've moved beyond your competitive career. Now we have a conversation about how you got to where you are, or
Right. How you lost
want to
millions
pursue
of
that.
dollars.
Exactly. Well, it wasn't my fault.
It
So
was
and so,
the accountant was a
they
thief.
didn't, And yes, there's validity because a lot of times, they are led astray. But how many times haven't we had this conversation?
Oh,
you
it's-
just failed to take a good look at that. You saw that and had some doubts and had some
Right.
questions and looked the other way. You
Right.
don't want to take responsibility. It's someone else's fault.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
So interesting. And that's what I'm saying. In all of the things I've been reading, it's like,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, I like to believe I'm an elevated fan, and that if it had been the Rams, I would have been extraordinarily disappointed. But look,
For sure.
you get over it.
So you're a fan now, and you've gone out and filed a lawsuit.
Well, let's wait before we even get to the lawsuit, because I want to carry on a little bit
Yeah.
with the again the progression of everything that happened. So,
Yeah.
so the point is that the Rams now tie the game,
Yeah.
and they're going into overtime.
Sure.
Okay. And for those of you who don't know, in overtime, the rule is you flip a coin. Whoever wins gets to choose if they want to have the possession first or if they want to give the possession away.
Yeah.
And whoever scores a touchdown. So sorry, let me back up. Each team needs to have one possession unless the team on the first possession makes a touchdown. So the coin is flipped, and the Saints get the call.
Yeah.
And
And what do they do?
Right. So here's the deal. For all of those fans who are upset, right,
Yeah.
that the call wasn't made.
Right.
It wasn't like the game was over and the Rams won.
Exactly.
Okay, this wasn't like the end of it.
Right.
They get they get their replay, because
Right.
all the fans are calling for a replay now. This is what the lawsuits are all about. They're calling for a replay.
Yeah.
They got their replay.
And what decision
They
did
turned
they
it
make?
and they turned it over.
Exactly.
And
So whose responsibility is that?
exactly, and the Rams go on to win on
They
a field goal.
capitalized on that.
They capitalized on their defense playing extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
So now that's the other thing I don't understand, and I
Right.
don't understand why people aren't talking about it. It's like, but guys, you actually got your replay,
Right. And then you gave it away.
and the universe gave you the coin toss.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the Rams came out first.
Yeah.
So it was almost like in a great universal plane. And yes, I'm being a little spiritual about it, but
Right.
like the karma kicked in,
Right.
and said, okay, you take the chance,
Right.
and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So why is there no satisfaction
Yeah.
that at least it wasn't like a missed call? Can you imagine if it had been a pass interference call and the Rams had picked off that
Blood. There
but
would've
and
been
then they
blood.
would have run for
There
a
would have been
touchdown.
blood. Yeah.
Then okay,
Yeah.
I could almost imagine a little bit more of the outrage.
Sure.
Right? But
Yeah.
it didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And yet nobody's talking about that.
Exactly. No one's talking about what happened next.
What happened next is they legitimately lost the game.
Right.
And they had the advantage. All they
Right.
had to do was make a touchdown.
Yeah.
So again, for me, it was like such a fascinating thing to watch.
Sure.
You know, if you look at it, the whole story,
Yeah.
and the whole progression of it,
Yeah.
and yet back to responsibility. Nobody wants to take responsibility. That then
We're going to focus on that one.
then they screwed up in the overtime.
No, we don't look at those things. We're going
No,
to
we don't
focus on
look
that
at
one
that.
big call.
Right. Okay. So now the game's over, and the outrage,
Yeah. And the
pain,
petitions and
And the 750,000 people signed a petition
Right.
to ask the NFL to overturn
Right.
the game and to replay it, which again, they kind of got the replay.
Yeah.
And now 2 fans have filed 2 independent lawsuits
Right.
against the NFL.
Right. I'm blown away by that.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Right. So where it stands today is, yes, those suits are being heard, and
Sure.
then there's a debate on it. It's going to be federal. If it's a judge even had to recuse himself because he was a Saints
Yeah.
season ticket holder. You know what I mean? It's like it's a soap opera.
It is. It's become a soap opera. And is that what you want? That's what you want? You want your team to have to play that game again? Like, does this? So they play again, they win. You feel better? I can't imagine wanting to sit through that. and then feeling satisfied.
Exactly.
I
So
really don't get that.
I don't get it at all. And I just want to say we've had a few viewers join us. Thank you so much. I got to do a shout out to my mom because she joined, and I told her I promised if she was on,
love
I
it.
would. So mom's there. And so we'd love to hear your opinions. I just want to throw it out there one more time because we are being very opiniinated. We are not done, and we
Yeah.
want to hear your thoughts.
Call
So
us.
either leave your comments on our Facebook pages or call us at 323-524-2599. Okay, so now you had so let's just look at the petition.
Right.
Okay. You know, I might sign a petition. I love my Rams.
Yeah.
I might have been like, okay, I'll
For
just
fun,
sign.
yeah.
For fun,
Yeah.
I'll sign. Like it's
to
never
sign
going to
it-
happen.
It's a show of support.
But two fans have
Right.
taken the time. I don't know if they're paying their attorney. It could be on contingency, although I would imagine that an attorney wouldn't take it on contingency. But let's assume that
Yeah.
they're putting their time, energy, and resource into
Sure.
filing a lawsuit
Right.
against the NFL.
Right. Because
am
the
a-
game didn't work out the way you
You wanted it
wanted it
to.
to.
To
And
me,
again, I get the outrage from the athletes themselves because this is their profession. It's their livelihood. I really do understand that. It doesn't mean that it doesn't change how I feel,
Right.
but I do understand
But
that
the athletes
outrage.
aren't doing that.
But the fans, you're a fan. You paid your few bucks to go, and again, they're not cheap. So you've paid your money, you got your tickets, you went, and the game didn't work out the way you wanted to. The game,
Right.
You're not a player. You're not on the field. You don't have millions on the line unless you're gambling. But you're a fan. So what's the outrage?
Well, no, and here's the interesting bit. So in the lawsuits, part of it is to force the NFL to have them play again,
Right.
but the other part is a monetary reimbursement of their ticket price.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, let's say I paid $100 a seat and I get my money back. Am I going to feel better because I got my money?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's what going to the game is all about.
You might win or lose.
Or lose.
Or draw.
And I could make an argument. If I were a lawyer in this case, I would be
Right.
making the argument that you got 58 minutes and 15 seconds worth
Yeah.
of a game
Yeah.
where it looked like you were going to win.
Exactly. Exactly. You got your money's
it's
worth.
entertainment, right?
It's
I mean, if you went there to
entertainment.
get entertained,
Yeah.
you got more than entertained. You're going to remember this for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So why should you have to pay that back?
Yeah, and again,
money's spent.
we've been those
Yeah.
fans who have spent tons of
know?
money to go to a game.
Absolutely.
Where we just got our hearts ripped out of our chests.
USC, University of Texas.
I didn't want to say it,
National
but yes, that's
championship.
one of the big examples. So we get it, but we're fans.
And
You
there-
expect for those things to happen.
And can you imagine if this lawsuit wins and the fans get their money back from the
Right.
NFL? What
Right. What
precedent
precedent is that
this
set?
going to set?
Exactly.
I didn't like how the game turned
Yeah.
out. I'm suing. I want my money back.
Like walking to the movie theater, before the movie's over. I just, it's not what I thought it
I
was
thought,
going to be.
I go to,
I
that
can't.
movie's a 2-hour movie and I'm down till, 1 hour and 58 minutes
Like,
and it
you know
didn't
what?
end
It
the
didn't
way I
end the
liked
way-
it.
Has this
didn't
ever
end the way
happened
it
before?
wanted.
Have they ever replayed a game because
No.
of this before?
No.
Yeah, so this would be the first
And why
time.
would you want? Why
Why?
really
Yeah.
would you want for that to happen?
I hope this loses just because I don't want that to be a
Well,
thing.
that part,
Yeah.
I think that part is already a done deal. It's going to
Okay.
lose because
Yeah.
I don't think legally they can force the NFL to do
Yeah.
anything. And I think the NFL does in its contract with all of the league owners. They
Yeah.
do have the right to push for or to have a replay if they think that there is an extreme injustice.
yeah.
But I think that part's already passed. I think now it's
But whether or
coming
not
down
you
to-
can or can't,
yeah.
beyond that, why do you want it?
Why do you want to spend your time and your money about, I don't, but the part that is about repaying the season ticket holders or the ticket holders in general is still kind of on the table. But
Right.
again, I think it would set such a
Awful,
ridiculous
awful precedent.
precedent because then
Awful.
any fan can come and say, give me my last. Look at how about the Cleveland Browns fans? What kind of lawsuit would they have?
Yeah.
They haven't until this year. For the last 10 years, they haven't won 10 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the season ticket holders. Well, now I have the ability to go get my last 20-year season tickets.
Yeah, what's supposed to stop you
Reimbursed.
from saying it's just a total blowout?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't like how that game went out.
Yeah.
I didn't get I didn't have fun at
Yeah,
all. My
I wasn't
team
expecting
lost.
that.
Yeah, you know exactly. I mean, it just opens the door, the floodgates for
It's too much.
everything else, and I don't like that at all.
It's too much.
It's no.
Well, and I question again, being, as I said at the beginning of the show, we are deep sports fans.
Right.
I mean, we talk about sports all the time.
Yeah.
And many sports, not just football.
Right.
We are fans of many sports, and we have attended many sporting events,
Yeah.
and we appreciate sports in a way
Sure.
that many other fans do. But I kind of question the sanity of any fan that, gets to that level
Yeah.
of injustice, like
Right.
that sense of injustice.
Right. Yeah.
That's not being a fan. That's
No.
being entitled to what? I don't know. But
Yeah. And again, I get it as a former player. I get it as a fan. I mean, I'm not going to mention the poor man's name again because I, was awful to him over the summer, but, the ref over the,
Oh, yeah.
the World Cup ref,
Yeah.
that it did
Yeah.
not work out a few occasions.
the U.S. ref who literally almost got himself physically hurt.
He
for
did
what
a number. He did
Yeah.
a number on
your
some
team.
of our, so I get it. But what is fair? At the end of the day, what are we really expecting from these games?
I
That
think,
nothing will ever go wrong?
I think that is what it comes down to is
And he had a reputation for bad calls. He had a reputation where there were several games on the line where he just, from beginning to end, this is not
but
the
they
case
let him
with this particular
the FIA
ref.
let him pay.
Exactly.
Let him
Exactly.
They knew
All part of exactly.
all part of it.
All part of the process.
The other bit of the controversy, which I find to be hysterical, is now it's like the conspiracy theory.
Right.
So 4 of the referees happen to be from California, not all from Southern California. So
Yeah.
it's just California. So they're like claiming that, they threw it because they wanted to see the Rams get into the Super Bowl.
Right.
And again, I go back to, well, if that's the case, the Saints still had an opportunity. It wasn't
Yeah.
the fait accompli did not happen in
Right.
regular in.
I never liked
regular-
conspiracy theories. Those really just,
We should get Tony to come in.
Truth be told.
Truth be told.
Exactly.
Another show here on the great UBN Go Network.
Right.
And he can explore it to see if it really is.
Exactly.
No, again, it's so interesting to me how we as fans also don't expect our teams to take responsibility, and that
Right.
they find,
Yeah.
they find ways to make it like it's somebody else's fault and the injustice of it all. And, I don't know if that's good for fandom.
Right. I don't know that it is good for fandom. And I mean, so many of us who love sports and have kids want to be able to have our kids learn some amazing lessons from being a part of sports, whether it's playing or, watching as a fan. Again, life isn't always fair, and it doesn't make that right or wrong. It's just a part of life, right?
Right.
And sports as a reflection of life is just the same. It's not always going to work out in your favor. There has to be a part of us that can tolerate disappointment, that can learn how to accept it. Again, control what you can't, let go of what you can. Control what you can and let go of what you can't. But just to be okay, to be able to walk away from a game and say, yeah, it hurt or pissed me off or frustrated the hell out of me. But at the end of the day, it's a game.
Yeah.
I can move on.
Yeah. So that's, I feel like we're at a point now where this whole incident is such a great example. One that I believe actually that we should all tell our kids about.
Yeah.
And talk to them about it. And see how they can apply it as if your kids are out there playing sports as ours are. So I'm looking at it as an amazing opportunity.
Learning opportunity,
A very
sure.
great learning
Yeah,
opportunity.
teaching lesson.
Something that you can always point to as you move forward,
Yeah.
in your fandom and working with kids, because it truly does. It showed from the very beginning to
Yeah.
the very end, like so many great, amazing lessons.
Yeah,
So-
I agree.
So on that note, I want to say go Rams.
Yes.
And let's hope that there's no deflate gate this
No
year.
more drama. Let's just have a
By
good
the
game.
way, did you see that there was a study, speaking of how people can't seem to let things go? I don't know, Kurt, maybe you can pull it up, but I heard on the news the other day there was a study at a university
Yeah.
where, I don't know if it was for a doctor or something, a student used the deflate gate to do a whole project that shows that indeed when you take the air out,
Yeah.
it gives you a better ability to throw the ball, and that for sure Tom
No,
Brady cheated.
This wasn't at the collegiate level. This was a little kid.
A little kid.
At
Okay.
school. This was a school science project.
And it was like it made the
And
papers.
he did. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's a school. I watched the interview with him and his father earlier. Was it over the weekend? I think it was. Just a kid. I don't think he's more than 11, 12.
And
Whole
watch,
science experiment
there's going to be
on
some
this.
fan who's going to come back and go, see,
Absolutely.
I'm going to sue now.
Yeah.
Let's take away the
Exactly.
Super Bowl from the Patriots. Right?
Exactly.
I love sports so
So
much.
yes, go Rams. Best
Go
of luck. We'll be there watching.
Rams.
Yeah.
They're in the Super
cool.
Bowl. They're in the
So
Super
cool.
Bowl. Okay, in the next 10
But best of luck to both teams. We want a
for
good
sure.
game. We want a great game.
We want a great game, but we want the Rams to win, and we do not want Tom Brady to win his 6th Super Bowl.
No.
But there have been, like I posted on my.
But if he does, how amazing for him.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
It will just cement it, and
We'll be
maybe
very
he'll
proud of him.
retire after that. and
Maybe,
be
maybe
done.
not. There's always number 7.
41. I know. He's 40. But it's very interesting in watching also the interviews after the game.
Right.
As much as you don't want to like Tom Brady, he's kind of a cool guy who's very humble, at least
Yeah.
at this point in his career. Like
Yeah.
I feel he was very well spoken about what it meant to him
Mm-hmm.
and the work that he personally has to put in to kind of stay at the level that
Sure.
he can play. And it's so interesting. Another point I want to make. Oh, I still
We're
have so much
full
on
of
my mind. I have
points
in it.
today.
So interesting because the Patriots also showed. This season was not so great for them.
Yeah.
I mean, comparatively, it was an amazing season by most standards, but
Yeah.
by their standards, I
Right.
think they ended up 11-4 or
I don't
11-5. I can't
Yeah.
remember, but they certainly did not go 11.
Right.
15-1 or something like
Exactly.
that. They struggled this season.
Sure.
They struggled with trying to find their feet. They struggled with coaching. They struggled with injuries.
Yeah.
They struggled with, I think, as much as Tom Brady is in probably the best shape of any football player out there at his age or younger, it's an aging roster.
Sure.
And still
Yeah.
with that, when
They
it came
are
down to it,
at the Super Bowl.
they are at the
Yeah.
Super Bowl, and you have to give credit to
Amazing.
again, as much as I'm not a fan of his, Bill Belichick for his amazing
Absolutely.
coaching.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be what's going to be so much fun about this game because
Yes.
Sean McVay
That
is
huge. That's a huge age difference. Experience, wisdom. So
But
there's
the-
so
the-
much that comes with those few extra decades.
exactly, but there's also
doing this.
but they're also both amazing coaches
Yeah.
in terms of
Such different
strategy,
styles.
very different styles.
Such different styles. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be very exciting to watch how strategically they play the game because, the Rams don't always come out strong. And, I'm sure Bill Belichick is creating some strategy for that, but Sean McVay knows it. And
Sure.
he's also, that's a whole,
Yeah.
that's another
fun to
interesting
watch.
that's going to come, by the way, out of all of this and Sean McVay's almost instantaneous success is
Yeah.
the fact that now every football team is going to want a Sean McVay, a 30-year-old wonderkind who
Right.
can see things differently.
Yeah.
And it'll be also very interesting and sad to watch, I think, some of the gray hair coaches that have been around the league for a really long time probably finding it harder to get at least a head coaching job. I mean,
Right.
they may end up in the
Yeah.
assistant coaching positions, but
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how football teams are going to, react and take on. Interestingly, one such case was the guy they stole from USC,
Right.
Arizona,
Yeah.
who may or may not be a good head coach, by
Yeah,
the way.
we don't know.
But again, he's a young, very strategic offensive
Sure.
coach who kind of shows promise, and he's young and he's all of that. So there's so much to come in the next couple of seasons to watch in football. And I think the dynasty of the Patriots is probably more susceptible to being overturned. I don't think they're going to go away, but I think they're more susceptible to it
Yeah.
being kind of on
Yeah.
the twilight of their dynasty.
We're seeing the vulnerabilities for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Also wanted to bring up the Australian Open. So that took place this past week.
Yep.
And a couple of things popped out at me from that. For those of you who don't know, there was the women's final was Naomi Osaka and
She was so great.
She was
so much
so
fun to
great.
watch.
Kvitova. I'm not going to say her name right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I slayed. If you ever hear it, my huge apologies. And Djokovic and Nadal.
Right.
And what was interesting to me about kind of the matchups and kind of the outcome of it is, so Naomi Osaka was the young lady who beat Serena in the U.S. Open not
Right.
6 months ago
Yeah.
under a huge controversy. Again,
Yeah, exactly.
Again,
Call.
a referee-driven controversy.
Right.
Not one call, but several calls where Serena was completely, it was the height of controversy. And this young lady who's only 21 now, probably 20 then, under the pressure and the glare of all of the press and Serena, her
Such
first
a
Grand
major
Slam.
win. I know, her first, that's such a major win, and she gets to deal with all of that
Exactly.
ridiculous controversy around it.
And she did it with such grace for
Yeah.
such a young woman.
Sure.
To come out and win again.
Yeah.
Right? In the next
And strongly.
major.
Yeah.
Well, she struggled. It
Yeah,
was not
but still.
she didn't take it, right?
Yeah.
She had to fight hard for it.
Yeah.
But so well spoken and so humble.
Yeah.
And that humility, although I totally believe that athletes need to have a big personality, it's like it takes a certain
You have to have confidence.
You have to have confidence
Your abilities
and all
for
of that.
sure. Yeah.
But I think she really embodies, and I'm really hoping that I don't want to say millennials because it's actually past millennials now. I think she's even younger than that. But that generation really looks at her as a role model of strength and character and how to present yourself. I mean, the first thing that she said in her speech was to thank, and I know that they're going to thank them anyway, but Kvitova thank her for being such a worthy opponent, given that she had suffered
Right.
a break-in into her home and
Injury.
injury to her hand through an intruder actually stabbing her
Yeah.
in her playing hand, and the fact that she came back. And then also the interesting thing to see Djokovic and Nadal, again, these guys who have been at the top of their game for not
so
a couple
long.
of years. We're talking
So long. Yeah. Yeah.
to go against each other again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's going to be the same at Wimbledon and the same at the
Sure.
French Open and probably the same at the U.S. Open.
Sure.
Where now Murray, who is sidelined, who probably is going to be retired, but still Federer,
Yeah.
37 years old.
It's amazing.
And the interesting part was that Djokovic blew Nadal away, but together they blew away their opponents to get
Right.
into the finals.
To get to the final, sure.
So I find it really unique and interesting that in certain sports, the age thing is actually almost giving people strength. And I say, maybe I'm saying this because I'm older. I'm older, but
Well, no, but there's a lot that comes with the age, that experience, the wisdom.
Right.
But now we're seeing changes in how athletes can train. So there's so many shifts in their diet and their training. Their bodies are just different.
Yeah.
They're taking care of their bodies differently. So all of
Yeah.
that is now allowing them to stay in the game even longer.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that beautiful combination of you can take care of your bodies better, combined with the experience and the patience and the wisdom that comes with age, and a whole new level.
well, and also I think it's a different.
athleticism.
I think that there's a different expectation. I think in today's world, we don't expect that athletes have to retire. It's not
Sure.
such a big deal, and
Yeah.
we do believe that they can. I also think it's a mindset.
Yeah.
I think it's a. We've talked about Tom Brady in the past. His whole shift of how he eats and what he thinks about himself and how
Absolutely.
he still looks at himself as being that kid who didn't make the football team
Yeah.
and what that's done to extend his career.
Yeah, right.
So again, I feel like there's so many great examples out there in the world of sports where we, as just either home athletes or just regular people, can look
Yeah.
at ourselves in a completely different light because we're looking
Right.
at examples of players that have
Who are breaking the mold.
breaking the mold every single day.
Yeah.
And particularly in the tennis world, the forecast is that these three players are going to be the dominant players, not for the next year, but for the next years to come.
Yeah,
And
right.
if Murray hadn't gotten injured
Yeah.
to the extent where it's really a problem,
Sure.
that he would have been as well.
Sure. Isn't that incredible?
I love sports.
Yeah, I know.
It is such a metaphor for life.
It is. We could just go on talking about
We
sports.
could. And we do.
And we do. but
Every
not-
other Thursday
Exactly.
at 1
Just say
o'clock now.
not anymore today.
No, because we have 1 minute left. Kurt, anything to add at the end of this? Thank you for your participation.
No problem. I'm glad I could. It was a very informative talk. I enjoyed the past 49 minutes.
Well,
Cool.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
And thank you for joining
You
in.
can run our
Yeah.
show anytime.
I
love having
thank
you here.
you.
Welcome you in
Thank
the
you
studio
for that.
anytime.
I thought I hope I gave some insight as well.
Yes,
I
you
don't
did.
know.
Great insight.
Yeah,
did.
well,
And go Rams.
Yeah, go Rams. I do hope they win.
We hope that everybody who is watching the Super Bowl this weekend, if you're at a party, please, drive safely, don't overdo, enjoy. Remember, the game is really just that.
Yep.
It's a game, and we are really fortunate. For those of us who are in LA, I know most of you who are watching us probably aren't, but that's we really have something to cheer about. You now can find us every other Thursday at 1 p.m. on ubngo.com, on our Facebook page, The Distillery Inc. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, Castbox, Stitcher, and others, so please look for us. We would love it if you would comment, like us, and share with your friends. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time. With
February 14th.
Oh,
That. We'll do a whole Valentine's Day.
we'll do a whole
special.
sports and love.
Love it.
Ooh.
Our love of sports.
Maybe we should look
Sports
at
and love.
famous sports couples.
I knew you were going to go there. I know her so well.
She's so excited. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.